Dark Souls and Elden Ring and Bloodborne and Sekiro are mainstream games. These aren't niche titles with a tiny player base, and the company that produces them, From Software, may not be a big AAA developer, but they're also not a tiny indie studio struggling to get by. Souls games have been mainstream for a while. If that fact was ever in question, it shouldn't be a question anymore after Elden Ring's release. Elden Ring was close to the most popular game in the world when it released. It sold around 3 times what the company was expecting it to in its first month, and I would be shocked if it didn't win Game of the Year for 2022. So there's no doubt that Souls games have a mass appeal. The question is, how come? How did these games accrue such a wide audience when they've done so little to adhere to mainstream standards? Well, I think I have the answer to that, and it's this. Souls games have a lot of different aspects, and those aspects are all connected, and they synergize. But each can be enjoyed independently of the other, and this draws in a diverse group of players that may like only 1 or 2 of those aspects and just ignore or tolerate the others. Let me give you an example. Many Souls and Elden Ring players love the lore. They love it. They get obsessed with the lore. There are from dozens to hundreds of videos on YouTube trying to explain Dark Souls lore, Elden Ring lore, Bloodborne lore, Sekiro lore, not to mention the hundreds of written posts on various forums that promote their personal theories of what it all means. I would go so far as to say that I don't think I've ever seen a game community go this hard or care this much about interpreting a video game's story. There might be a community out there more unhinged than me and my people, but I doubt it. I haven't seen it. My point is, many Dark Souls people care about the stories a lot. But also, many don't care about it at all. There are many Souls players that don't read item descriptions, that will barely talk to NPCs, and that have never gone online to engage with Souls lore speculation. They don't play Souls games for the story. And the games, for their parts, are perfectly comfortable in accommodating those people, because the story is told in a very unintrusive way, with the bulk of the storytelling being transmitted through item descriptions, through environmental storytelling, through an atmosphere. So if you're a Souls player that wants to ignore the entirety of the story, the games are more than happy to let you. Another example is the PvP. Ask any Souls PvP enjoyer why they enjoy invading so much, and they'll all universally tell you the same thing. It's because the experience offered by invading and being invaded is one that does not exist in any other game, period. Dark Souls PvPers might be more obsessed with PvP and invasions than the lore people are with the lore. They will make different builds with different level ranges, with different weapon upgrade levels, so that they can invade in different locations and have access to the whole map if they wanted to. They will make cosplay builds so that they look like a character from a different game, or an NPC from the same game. The PvP people keep the game alive long after everybody else has moved on. Long after the lore people are done making lore videos, and the single player people are done making their boss guides, the PvP people will still be making build videos, will still be experimenting with new weapons and ideas and gimmicks. It is a large and continuously thriving part of the Souls population. But just like the lore, it's also an aspect of the game that you don't have to interact with at all if you don't want to. You can play the entirety of the games offline and never have to deal with a single invasion. You don't need to know anything about the weapon meta, anything about poise breakpoints, anything about soul or weapon level matchmaking. You don't need to care what attacks, weapon arts, or spells combo well into each other. If this isn't one of the aspects of Dark Souls you enjoy, you can ignore it. And the same thing holds true even for something as crucial as the bosses and the combat. Souls games are famous for their bosses, and many consider overcoming a difficult boss the quintessential Souls experience. When you're up against a difficult boss, and you've lost a few times already, and you're beginning to figure out when to dodge, when to block, when to parry, when it's safe to go in for a counterattack and how to counterattack, it feels like you're engaged in a dance with the boss. For many, that's what Souls is all about. But even this oh-so important part of the game is optional. If you don't want to dance with the boss, you don't have to. There's many ways in the games to avoid it, but the most obvious one is summoning another player, which is an option that was available to you even from Demon Souls. Most bosses aren't designed to deal with multiple players well, and so the dance that I'm describing really disappears the moment the boss has another target. As the Souls games progressed, this option became more and more available, with Dark Souls 3 having many NPC phantoms that you can summon, even if you played offline, or if you played long after the game's release and there weren't that many people willing to help anymore. Elden Ring then expanded it further with their Spirit Ashes system. The Ash summons fill the same role that participating in multiplayer co-op did previously. You can tell that because participating in one excludes you from participating in the other. You can't have a player phantom and an Ash summon at the same time. So if you're not interested in dancing with the boss, or for whatever reason you just want to get through it, the option to summon other players or a powerful Spirit Ash is always available to you. And the game casts no judgment. It doesn't care how you get through its bosses any more than it cared whether you think its story is good, or whether it cared if you liked its PvP or not. Souls games just don't give a fuck what you care about. Its treasures are there for those who want them, and it doesn't get hurt or offended if you don't find its offerings valuable. I've even met people that only enjoy Dark Souls for its level design, that don't like its story, don't engage with the lore, don't think highly of the bosses, and have never tried the PvP. For those people, Dark Souls is about the exploration, the individual encounters with the basic enemies, and the discovery of items. Now, of course, most people are not so one-dimensional. There's not that many that just like one thing about Dark Souls. Most people get enamored with at least 2 or 3. But the fact that you can just like one thing, and get the most that you want out of that one thing, without having to participate very much in the other things that you don't like, is the reason why Dark Souls has such mass appeal. You can enjoy Dark Souls a la carte, engaging with only the parts you want to, and for the exact amount that you want to. And best of all, those disparate parts actually bleed into each other quite a bit. They synergize and have a lot to do with each other. Many people that start off with having no interest in the lore will eventually develop an interest, just from occasionally looking at item descriptions, or seeing something in a boss fight, or in a new environment that piques their interest. Many people will start off having no interest in the PvP, but they'll get invaded when they're helping their friend out or something, and they'll do some research to be better prepared in case they get invaded again, and the process of doing that research and getting prepared for other invasions will cause them to have an interest in getting better, and eventually they slippery slope into becoming an invader themselves. That, I think, is the secret to Elden Ring and Dark Souls' success. It's what you want it to be when you want it to be that thing, and if you're ever ready for it to be more, you'll be pleasantly surprised that it was always more, and it's been waiting for you to see that. And that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.